Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. We're here today to start a new reading vlog. I'm judging the Booktube prize, Octofinals round. I'm reading fiction, so 6 novels, and over the course of this video, I'll weigh in after I finish reading the books and tell you a little bit about what I've thought about them so far. So the first book that I read was the final revival of Opal Nev by Donnie Walton, and I really enjoyed certain aspects of that book. It's written as though it is a memoir. We have a woman who is working as an editor in a music magazine, and she's interviewing 2 people who were part of a punk rock duo. And they had a career in the 1970s. Her father was a musician, one of the drummers that was backing this duo. And there was a riot at a music performance, and her father was killed. And so 40 plus years later, these 2 people are planning to reunite for a duo performance. And she's using this opportunity to interview them and get a little bit of closure about what happened to her father. I really enjoyed the structure of the novel. I thought that the interview style was really effective. I felt like it was nonfiction. I felt like this was a real story. I like how she incorporated some historical events and historical people with the characters in the novel. But I didn't really feel empathetic enough towards the characters. I felt like the main female musician was supposed to be this empowered black woman. But there were places where I didn't feel like she was as strong as she wanted to think she was. She's being written, the character is being written, so she's not perfect, which is fine. I guess we want our icons to be icons, so I felt like she didn't quite live up to the light. But I like the book. I like the book okay. I don't know if this is going to be my favorite novel, so I guess we'll have to come back and see how the other books rank next to this one. But so far, finished 1 book, so 1 down, 5 to go. You say hi? Hi. Hi. So the second book I read was The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, and that one was really interesting too. I mean, I think I'm going to find all of these books interesting, but here's what I found interesting about it. So the author is Louise Erdrich. She is an Indigenous woman who is a bookstore owner and an author. And in this story that is set for the most part in a bookstore owned by a novelist named Louise. How's that for autofiction? Look who else is reading books. Good job. So the main story in The Sentence is about a woman named Tuki. She's a Native American woman, and we meet her when she's a little younger, and she commits a crime and goes to prison for a few years, and she serves a sentence because that's the title of the book, and she spends some time being incarcerated. She comes out and she starts to live a pretty normal life afterwards. She marries someone that she knew before. She and her husband foster a family member, and so she has a family. She has a job at a bookstore, and she seems to be living a pretty normal life. And then there are some supernatural elements that happen. Don't quite get why that is included in a novel, but the book is set in this bookstore and Tuki's home in Minneapolis in 2020. So the novel takes place over a year, from All Souls Day 1 year to All Souls Day the next year. So is that the 1st of November? And so because this is happening in 2020 in Minneapolis, we're also reading about the Black Lives Matter protest that is sparked by the murder of George Floyd. And we're reading about COVID and how normal people dealt with life during the pandemic. And of course, you know, we have people who are worried about COVID, the developing understanding about the pandemic and how to protect yourself, and people getting sick and all of that. So I thought that this was a really interesting riff on real life and what sentences are and words and the value of words and the detriment of words. But I also felt like some of the pieces of this story didn't quite connect. Like, I still don't get why the supernatural element exists. But, you know, it's an Indigenous story, and Native people pay a lot of homage to the spirit world. So I'm going to have to think a little bit more about that. But I like the story. I felt like it was just normal enough for me. Like, when it was over, I I wanted more. And I liked that Tuki and her husband didn't quite have everything figured out. Even in terms of their relationship, they still, they knew that they were each other's person, even if there were pieces that they didn't quite accept. I don't know how to say that, but I really like the story. So as it is now, finished 2 books, and I think Louise Erdrich is ahead of Donnie Walton's novel, so we'll see how the rest of the books shake out from here. I just finished reading Hell of a Book by Jason Mott, and I enjoyed it at the end. I feel like the story as a whole works as a profound statement about race in America. The author is a black man, and he's writing about this author who writes a book with the same name, Hell of a Book. And as he's going around promoting this book, he's being forced to reckon with his reasons for writing this book, and some of the characters that are coming to life in his story and how they reflect on his own life. It's kind of an existential moment, a process of him understanding his place in the racial story at his time. And so he's being followed by ghosts. He has this really active imagination, and he's being followed by ghosts, especially the ghost of a little boy who turns out is more of himself, and so a reflection of this fictional author's real story. And he's processing what happened with his parents, and he's also processing what happens with every parent, with every child who grows up black in America, and is being forced to take on the weight of history, the history of their ancestors, and the present circumstances of their life in America in a racial story. And so there are points in the book where I didn't love, I felt like it was just a little bit too existential, a little too out there, but I feel like it all came together in the end. And so, yeah, I really like this. I'm not sure how it ranks with other books that I've read so far. This is the 3rd book that I'm finishing. I still have a couple of other books that I've started and need to finish. So not sure how it's going to rank, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. So we're out walking, but I thought I would just update you on how I'm liking the book that I'm reading right now. I'm currently reading Fight Night by Miriam Taves, and this is set in Canada. We're reading about androgynous preteen. It seems like she identifies as a girl. Her name is not necessarily feminine, but other people, strangers, seem to relate to her with androgyny. They're always asking, is it a boy or a girl? And we're reading about her and her mother and her grandmother living together in Canada. And the mother is pregnant, the father is missing, and we're getting a little bit of explanation from the older generations about relationships. They're also writing letters to the unborn baby. There's discussion about why this child is not in school. Like right now, she's been suspended because of there's been some violence, maybe bullying, fighting. I'm not sure which exactly, but it seems like she has a history of not going to school. And so we're exploring that a little bit. The grandchild and grandmother it seems like a pretty close relationship. The grandmother is homeschooling this child, and also explaining a little bit about the family history. Seems like she was an immigrant from Russia. I think she's Russian. But in any case, she's a European immigrant who was sent to Nebraska to work as a live-in helper. And I've seen that in a book that I read recently, My Antonia by Willa Cather. So it's pretty interesting to see that coming around as an explanation and a little bit of how people are the way they are, their background. The book is pretty literary. The author inserts these quotes from other books, other authors, and so it's giving this writing a little bit more profundity maybe than it otherwise would have, because, like I said, it's a child writing, kind of like a diary, combination diary, letters, exploring relationship to an unborn sibling and other people who are away, the people who have died or just are missing. So it's interesting. I'm not sure how it will rank with the others, so I guess we'll have to see. So I finished Fight Night by Miriam Taves, and it's maybe a 4-star read for me. Under other circumstances, I'd probably say that I really enjoyed this book and I'd recommend it, but it's not my favorite of the 6 books. It's probably my number 4 book so far. Yeah, I I liked it. I feel like it had a lot of the elements to be an important novel, but it didn't feel like it really reached that threshold. We're looking at the relationship between grandparent and grandchild. And so there's this Jay Gatsby character who keeps coming to their door and offering them exorbitant amounts of money for their home. And so I guess that's a little bit of a nod to people being pushed out of their space because of tycoons who want to take possession of what they have and improve them. I don't know. And then there was this comparison to this Willis Braun character who's supposed to be this tyrannical kind of lord character, the lord who exploits the serfs in the feudal system. I don't know. There was some religious thing. It's a lot. There are a lot of elements, and I liked it a lot. I like how it explored age, and having this mature female character kind of running the gamut and doing things that pleased her. And there's a little bit of a discussion about end of life and who makes a decision about how someone dies. So, like I said, there were some elements here that were really, really poignant, but I feel like it didn't all come together to be one of my favorite books. So, finish that and moving on. So I finished reading Detransition Baby by Tori Peters, and it wasn't specifically for me. I started reading this book a few months ago, and I DNF'd it back then. I was hoping that it wouldn't be assigned to me, but it was. So I read it. I read it all the way through, and I liked it enough. I feel like the book makes a really bold political statement. It's talking about transgender people and a little of gender politics and comparing experiences and expectations and the limitations of people who are of transgender identity. Just a lot of that message gets caught up because there's a lot of sexual description, a lot of erotic stuff. I feel like it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too in your face. I wanted the book to be just focused on the literary aspect, and the literary is there, but there's also a lot of very provocative statements. And I feel like the author goes to great length to make the reader feel something. I did feel some things while I was reading this book. It's pretty emotional. I ran the gamut of expressions. I laughed, I cried. There are also places where I learned some things. I just feel like there was a little bit too much sex. It's a little bit too graphic description of the sexual experience of some queer people. And we're reading about a man who transitioned to becoming a woman, lived as a woman for several years, and then transitioned again, and is now in a relationship with a cisgendered woman. And they're expanding their family to include his also transgender girlfriend from when he was living as a woman. And it's muddy and messy, and I suppose that's the experience. I just kind of wish that the author was also transgender. I feel like maybe there's a little bit too much shock value in the book for me to really center on the message. I think this is going to be my lowest rating of the 6 books, but I still have more reading to do. So if it looks like I just woke up, it's because I did. But I finished reading Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen, and it's really, it surprised me how much I liked it. It's a really expansive novel. You can tell that the author is sitting down to tell you a really long story. And when I found out that this is the beginning of a trilogy, I think it made me like the story a little bit more. So it's about a man who's a pastor in 1970s Illinois, Chicago suburb. And this man is a pastor, and we're reading from the perspective of the man, his wife, and they're having some marital problems. His oldest son, who is considering going to Vietnam, even though he's been granted educational deferment. His oldest daughter, who's in high school, and his third oldest child, so the second to the penultimate child, who is a younger kid, seems to be gifted, and he may or may not be a drug dealer. The pastor is also nursing an attraction to a widow, and he has a rivalry with another clergy over who should lead this youth group in the church called Crossroads. So the book is about this youth group called Crossroads, and so we're exploring these young people's lives, but we're also exploring characters who are at some crossroads in their lives. because they are all hiding things from other people, and we get alternating perspectives, and so we learn a lot about these people. In the pastor's story, we see him interacting with this widow, and we also see him going out to minister to a group at another church, a black church. And so there's a lot of stereotyping. There's a lot of, because they're black, because they're black, they're poor and they're on drugs and they don't take care of their children. And so that was a little galling to read at first, but it's part of a big story that the author is telling. And so we're exploring what happens in these people's lives around Christmas, and it's a little bit of the gift of the Magi and the Christmas story, and a lot about recognizing and accepting who people are. So yeah, when I found out this was a trilogy, it made me more interested in the story, and so I liked it a lot, and I think this is going to be one of my higher ratings for the Booktube prize. So yeah, now that I've finished all the books, here's how I have come up with a rating. My top book is Hell of a Book by Jason Mott, which surprised me because I didn't think that I was going to love that book as much as I did until I was finished and I saw how the two characters really came together, how this man was every man unnamed, but he is also this young kid who never got a chance to grow up to be this man. And I think that book was brilliant. So Hell of a Book is my number one book. The second book is The Sentence. Louise Erdrich's The Sentence. I think she captured a lot in that book, a lot of the pandemic, a lot of what it meant to be a part of a bookstore and a book community during that time, and how books in The Sentence were the things that survived after the pandemic. Also really really like the representation of the Native community, and just the various expressions of sentencing that she explored in that book. I thought it was brilliant. So that's my second book. And then Crossroads is my number 3 book. Surprise, surprise. Jonathan Franzen wormed his way into my number 3 spot. Final Revival of Opal Nev by Donnie Walton. I liked a lot when I was reading it, but I'm a little conflicted about Crossroads versus Hell of a Book. Which one should be number 3? Which one should be number 4? But I think overall, the novel structure and the success with a point, I think Crossroads gets a slightly higher mark than the Final Revival, even though I really enjoy the Final Revival of Opal and Nev. I hope it goes forward, even though I'm putting it in my number 4 spot. This young woman exploring the lives of the people who were around her father when her father was killed. I thought it was really poignant. It's just, I also felt a little distance in that book. So I liked it a lot, but Crossroads gets a little bit of an edge. And yeah, Fight Night, didn't love as much, and Detransition Baby, was not my favorite. Tori Peters, I thought it was a really great book. It just is not the book that I want to move forward. So yeah, that's my ratings. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm hoping that I'll be a judge in the next round as well. So I guess we'll be making another one of these videos then, and I hope you'll join me for it. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Would love to hear from you. If you judged the Booktube prize, let me know what round. If you have a video, link it down below so I could go watch it. And yeah, let's chat. So until then, happy reading. Bye.